department who will talk a little bit about Homeric myth. Let's give them a warm round of appreciation.
Thank you very much, Nick, for this opportunity to speak, and congratulations to all of you for choosing very good films to see tonight. I saw it on Friday, and without giving away too many spoilers, I can recommend it, and I will say that Matt Damon exceeded my expectations, so it was a good choice. A lot to talk about with Homeric myth. It's one of those subjects you could spend your whole life studying, and I've got about 10 minutes to tell you a little bit about it. But one of the things that's worth asking, and people often do ask, is why are we interested in these stories that are 3,000 years old that were composed on the other side of the planet in a foreign language by a foreign culture? And there's lots of answers to that question, but one of the questions that comes to mind is that the stories resound on so many levels, and Odysseus is a man of many parts. One of the words that Homer uses to describe him is this word polytropos, which means versatile, a man of many ways, of many twists and turns, and it can also sort of be used in a passive sense to be a man who is pushed in many different directions as well. And one of the great things about the story of the Odyssey is that this hero is kind of a reluctant hero. Now, at the very beginning of the myth, he hears a prophecy that if he goes to Troy, he's going to spend 20 years away from his home. He's going to come back and find his house in ruins and his wife threatened by these horrible bogans, who want to marry her, right? And he will miss out on seeing his son grow up. So he doesn't want to go to Troy, and he feigns madness to get out of going to Troy. And has anyone here read the book Catch-22? Great novel by Joseph Heller. He said he used the story of Odysseus to explain the story of Yossarian, who feigns madness to get out of these crazy missions that the Air Force is making fly over in southern Italy towards the end of the war. So that's just one example of the myriad ways in which the story's been retold again and again. So Odysseus then, one of the great parts of his story is that he's kind of a reluctant hero. And while the word Odyssey has become an English word meaning great epic journey, again, he's a reluctant traveller. He just wants to get home. But all of these things keep on getting in the way. So he keeps on having to improvise, he keeps on having to sort of make things up as he goes along. And when we look at his story, we find, and this is often the way with heroes from Greek myth, is that they're not always sort of squeaky clean good guys. They're not always sort of the square-jawed, oh yes, I can do everything, everything's going to be fine. He's quite a problematic figure in a way, and I don't want to give away too many things, but he makes some mistakes. He endangers the lives of his men unnecessarily, and he gets himself into a few scrapes. And so when we see that in this film, and when you're reading the Odyssey, you think, yeah, Odysseus has got a lot to cope with. And the narrative is important because it's not just sort of a gung-ho kind of wartime story about a guy who triumphs against the odds and everything's fine. It gives you a lot to think about. And one of the things that emerges that's really important in the epic, and you see it in the film too, is the strong female characters. And obviously the most important of these will be Penelope, who is his wife, who is trying to hold the fort at home, which she does for 20 years. And she shows great powers of endurance herself. One of the adjectives that Homer, and Homer is, I say to my students, probably the greatest poet who never lived, because we don't really know anything about Homer. But what we do know is that Homer is the name attached to this poem, the Odyssey, and also a poem called the Iliad, which deals with the last year of the Trojan War, or an event in the last year of the Trojan War, the anger of Achilles. Anyone here seen Troy? Okay, well, don't judge Homer by Troy. The Iliad is spectacular in its own way as well. But just a few thoughts about what you're getting with the Odyssey. I'm really pleased that Nolan has spent so much time to perfect the visual detail of the film. He's gone old school, as you probably know. He's used IMAX technology. He has used old school 70mm celluloid. There's hardly any CGI in it at all. And that close attention to visual detail is kind of refreshing in many ways, because when you read the Homeric epics, you find that they are intensely visual as well. There's a great attention to detail. You get descriptions of battle scenes that would make Quentin Tarantino flinch, and you also have descriptions of things like people lovingly making meals, or very sort of intimate moments between couples. And so the ancients looked at the Odyssey and said, yeah, it's this grand epic story of the guy coming back home and encountering monsters and sorceresses and goddesses and having a few flings along the way as well, and listening to the sirens and living to tell the tale and all that sort of thing. But also there are these moments of intense intimacy as well. And again, one of the things that you will find when you're reading Homeric epic, which I hope you do, is this technique that Homer uses of these similes, which he uses extensive descriptions to compare something to something else to make it really vivid for us. And you get great moments, and one of my favourite moments, which Nolan includes sort of indirectly in this film, is a moment when Odysseus is the beggar and he's speaking to Penelope in disguise, and he's encouraging her to hold on, and he's saying to her, basically, your husband is alive, he's closer than you think, don't give up. And of course, she's just thinking of him as a beggar. And he goes into this long narrative describing seeing Odysseus in Crete, and she recalls all these details about people they knew in common. And there's this moment where she starts weeping, and the tears fall down her cheeks like the snows on a mountaintop when they're hit by the first warm winds of spring. And she's weeping there, and the tears are flowing down her beautiful face. And she wept for her husband, who was sitting right next to her. And he has to stay calm. He's got to control himself, because he knows the suitors are watching all this, and he can't give the game away just yet. And so he made his eyes hard like iron or horn, even though he was grieving for his wife. So you get these incredible moments of intimacy and delicacy between the figures, as well as this sort of grand epic kind of sweep and this sort of grand heroic saga. And it's that kind of variation, that kind of modulation that you're getting in the Odyssey. The grandeur, the magnificence, but also the intimate and the personal and the vulnerable that makes these epics, these are just one aspect that makes these epics so profound, so moving and so human. And this is one of the things that we get with these figures. They are on a different scale from us, yes, but there is also something profoundly human about them, and that often emerges in these moments of vulnerability. There are times when Odysseus is ready to break. He actually cries a lot in the Odyssey. When we first see him, he's so desperate to go home, he's weeping on the shore of Calypso, this goddess that he's had a fling with for 7 years, and thinking, well, it was fun while it lasted, but he's kind of got the 7-year itch, you might say, and he wants to go home. And he's crying because he thinks, I wish I'd died at Troy, because at least there would be a grand memorial to me, and my glory would be everlasting. And he's worried about being forgotten. And something else that's really important too, that I think Nolan brings out really well, is the importance of memory. People establishing their identity through shared memories and shared experiences that they have with others. And the importance of long-term memory, building up links, building up loyalty, being sure that, yes, you really are who you say you are, because we have these shared memories together. And I can remember when we did this together. And there's a wonderful moment in the Odyssey where Penelope turns the tables on Odysseus. After he's done everything to prove that he really is her husband, and he's back after 20 years, she's still not absolutely convinced. And I won't give it away, but there's just a wonderful moment where she turns the tables on him and gets him to spill the beans about who he really is. And in that moment, you see that, yes, she is his equal. She's not just the good little wife who's staying at home. She is tough, and she is shrewd, and she can endure as much as Odysseus can as well. So she's just one of the many female figures that you encounter when you're reading the Odyssey. Just like, yeah, it's a wonderful tale that resonates on so many levels. I spoke about it on the radio on Sunday and had a nice chat with Jim Moore about it. And he asked me a few times, what is the mega message? What does it tell us about being human? And I was saying, well, there are lots of different things you can take from it. It doesn't have to be reducible to one message. But one of the things that you could say about it in a general sense is to say, the Odyssey conveys to us that life, for all of its messiness and craziness and everything else, is worth living. And I think one of the great moments that you get, and it's alluded to in the film, but Odysseus is offered immortality by Calypso. And she says, you can stay with me, I'm a goddess, I'm much sexier than your wife will ever be. You can be young and beautiful with me forever. What do you say? And he just says, I want to go back home. I accept my mortality. I know I'm going to get old. I know, I'm going to go grey one of these days, and it can happen to the best of us. And he says, yes, this is what I'm accepting. And at that moment, you get this, in some ways, for all of its complexity and messiness and everything else, it is a kind of a celebration of life on a number of levels. Along the way, things get pretty messed up, but there is something profoundly human and humane in a story like that. And so, as you're watching the film, I think you'll find out that Nolan does a pretty good job of bringing out some of these aspects in this great epic. That is, a great adventure story, a great ripping yarn on lots of levels, but also very human and profound on other levels. And I'm hoping that you'll find, and remember that enrolments are still open for the next 48 hours at university, and there is a Greek myth course that's going. Pardon? I said that you could say it, but you told me that I could say it. Anyway, I'm happy that you'll find, like Odysseus does, as he's making his long journey to be back and united with his wife and his son, I'm happy that you'll find that, if you'll pardon the expression, there's no place like home. So on that note, I'll let you enjoy the film. So happy to